You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining me is Brian Young, the birthday dork.
One final thing I have to do, and then I'll be free of the past.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork. And Brad Gullickson, mouth dork.
Ho, 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 homicide.
Oh, that's
And I'm your
funny.
host,
I've never
Darren
seen
Smith,
garbage eat garbage
the disco
before.
dork. I'm not gonna lie, for a second there, I just thought you were Build-A-Bear. And welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast.
Somebody's been rewatching.
Day to you.
Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brian. Happy birthday to you.
Merry Christmas from the Temptation.
Oh, man.
And many more on
I
Channel
got
4.
so many renditions. I don't
Somebody
even know. I got
knows the
operatic.
answer to life,
I got-
the universe,
I got
and
the
everything.
Marilyn
Yes, I was the
Monroe.
first
I got the
nerd to make that
Christmas
joke.
version, and I got the Brad version.
Yeah, that's right. Trademark, copyright.
Yep.
Oh man!
Well,
thank you,
I
guys.
just can't wait to hear
appreciate it.
how
I'm
how
blessed
that
as
sounds
always
all
to see
edited
another year.
together, because I'm
42.
sure it'll sound
42,
perfect.
just like Jackie Robinson.
Happy birthday, Brian.
Yes.
A bowl of
When you woke up this
dark
morning,
chocolate
what was
and
the?
oat
How did you
cereal
celebrate? What
and
was your
some egg
birthday
salad.
breakfast in solitaire?
Oh,
No.
damn.
Ooh.
Ooh, okay.
That's weird. Are you
the
pregnant?
older I get, the more I'm starting to eat like an older man.
I ate 9
but
cookies
no,
in your
yeah,
honor.
That was a lazy breakfast. I didn't feel like cooking, so I just said, let me have a bowl of cereal and eat some egg salad and take my vitamins.
What the hell?
I mean, I understand
No,
cereal,
no,
but egg
I
salad for
get,
breakfast is a real left turn.
It's like a
What
it's
cereal
like
did you
a
get? Was it
Nature
Cookie
Valley.
Crisp?
No, he's
it's
dark
it's
chocolate
a dark
oats.
chocolate and
Oh, dark
oats,
chocolate oats.
Nature Valley bag of you could eat it just kind of like a snack, or you could just eat it with cereal. And usually I eat
That
it
sounds
with
like a
almond,
42-year-old
I
cereal.
put it in almond milk, and I'll just eat it like that. So.
Nice.
Gotta try to eat a little healthy.
Well, you know his movements, his 42-year-old
Sorry,
movements
I
are
was
strong.
having mic
Very
trouble.
strong.
I'm back now.
Strapping.
Okay.
A lot of fiber.
But no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
What are
guys.
you doing,
Again,
Darren?
Yeah, definitely blessed to have another year.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know it's actually falls on the day that we record.
Well, we are thrilled to have you.
Yeah, spending your birthday on the It
So how was your
Modcast.
weekend? So what'd you do this week?
Okay. I guess we can jump right in.
Cool.
Okay, let's get into it, man. Because I was going to text you, Brad, after I watched it, because I was like, I got some thoughts. I need to talk this through. Kind of like last week when Lisa was like, yeah, let's talk out this insecure thing. Let's talk through some Vertigo stuff. So yeah, I actually watched Vertigo, and I enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed it. But it kind of left me with a really, really odd feeling after I saw it, and yeah.
Yeah, it's not Psycho. It's not Rear Window. It's not necessarily a happy movie in any way.
But it is a sticky movie. Like, you find yourself like really dwelling on it. I think.
Some odd years old.
Let's see how he does.
But yeah, okay. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock. This stars, was it James Stewart? He stars as Scotty, John Scotty Ferguson. And Kim Novak, who's amazing in it. She, spoilers. She plays dual roles of Madeline Elster, and Judy Barton. And then you also have Tom Hillmore as her husband, Gavin Elster. So Scotty kind of plays this retired... Midge. Barbara Bell Geddes plays Midge, which is like... I don't want to say it's his secretary, but I guess it's like an old flame or like somebody he used to be engaged to. And it's funny when I heard her name was Midge because it made me think of Out of Sight. And I was like, oh, that's probably where Soderbergh got, or maybe he did, I don't know. But it made me think of Out of Sight because I'm always trying to make connections of where modern filmmakers kind of get their influences from, like from old cinema. So when I heard her name was Midge, I was like, oh, Out of Sight. But anyway, so yeah, Scotty plays this retired private detective who had this incident, and the movie opens up with like this rooftop chase, and I guess the criminal gets away when Scotty almost falls off the roof of this building, and he gets I don't know if that's was the cause of him getting vertigo, but that incident almost kind of like changed him where he really couldn't, be in high places and things like that. So I thought that was really, really cool to kind of open up with that opening scene, and then we kind of get into the plot where he has like an old college buddy. His old college buddy Gavin comes in and he asks Scotty to basically spy on his wife. But it wasn't for any type of nefarious things as far as like her having an affair or anything like that, but it's just that he felt that she was acting funny, or like there was, and the movie in the beginning kind of makes it feel like there's some type of supernatural element to it. So I'm like, and it being Hitchcock and this being my first time watching it, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this would be interesting because this feels like it's going to be kind of like this kind of straightforward, like detective noir type of story, but they're kind of hinting at these kind of like sprinkles of like of supernatural in it as well. So I was like, this could be interesting if this movie kind of takes a left turn in that direction. But I mean, even though he does kind of lead you down that path, Hitchcock does make a left turn, but not in the way that you think it's going to actually go. And I don't know, I just found a lot of that stuff interesting. The more we follow Scotty and the more that he starts to follow Madeline, and then everything that happens at the San Francisco Bay when she jumps off, jumps into the water and she tries to commit suicide. He saves her, and then like he starts to kind of develop this romantic relationship with his college buddy's wife, and then it's interesting the way that Hitchcock kind of frames this story where it feels like it's like it gets to a point where there's almost like an ending to a certain arc, and it seems like that happens at the end of each kiss. There's a kiss that he has with Madeline at the shore, and the way that like the music swells and it goes to black and white, and if it almost feels like that's a complete story, like that's the end of the movie, and then we kind of move into the other part of the story, and then we we learn that Maddie takes him to this oh goodness, what was it? It was like a church, wherever that bell tower was. So they were riding. Yeah. So they were riding out of the city and going up to kind of like this villa or someplace.
The San Juan mission.
This is where the act of like her suicide or her murder happens, when she falls off the bell tower. And of course, when she goes up the bell tower, it's hard for Scotty to follow her because of his vertigo. So then he's under the impression that Madeline has killed herself. But then like some time passes, and then he sees this beautiful woman kind of walk, past him, that looks a little bit different, and this woman whose name is Judy, and come to find out, make a long story short, come to find out, Judy is Madeline. And I was kind of like taken aback at first, because I was like, okay, is that because I couldn't really tell if that was Kim Novak at first.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the exact same way when I first watched it, because this was the first movie of Kim Novak's I had ever seen. So I saw this in college, and I also was confused. Like, is that the same actress? What's going on?
We'll get into Scotty and the whole obsession thing, because that was the thing that kind of, I don't know how it was in 1958, but I don't know. Like, watching it now, it's just like, ugh, it's just kind of creepy.
Well, I think you're definitely supposed to find him uncomfortable and lecherous. I don't think every action he does is supposed to be seen that way, or at least seen the way that we see it now in 2020. But you certainly go, this guy is unhinged and broken and losing his damn mind and acting in an irrational way.
But the discomfort comes when he starts manipulating Judy.
Right.
We're going like, who is this poor girl? And then you feel about like, oh, this is the story about a man turning into a monster.
It's crazy,
and then
how the movie
it's revealed that they are the same woman, and then the answer is bitches be crazy, man.
Once you kind of learn that Judy is Madeline, because it deals with obsession a lot, especially through the character of Scotty. And that did kind of rub me the wrong way a little bit. And it goes to what you were just saying too, Lisa, like when he tries to change and transform, because he's trying to make this turn this other woman into the image of this other woman that he fell in love with. Not, mind you, that at least under Scotty's impression, this is also a married woman. So I don't know, it was just a lot of stuff that kind of just didn't sit well. But when you find out that Judy and Madeline are the same person, then it kind of throws this whole other wrinkle into it. And then you kind of get into the mystery of what they were planning with Gavin, and then who his wife really was, and then him trying to steal. I think he was trying to embezzle or steal some money, or get like the insurance money for the death of his wife. Because he hired Judy to play his wife. All that stuff I found intriguing, but it was just I don't know. It's just like when we kind of get into that descent of obsession with Scotty. But it was cool when he started to realize, because when he saw the necklace and he knew, and he finally knew, he's like, oh shit, okay, I'm being played. And it was funny in the first half of the film, I started to think that I was like, something is telling me that I got a feeling they're playing this guy, and I didn't know really why or the reasons why it had to be him. But then like it all comes together at the end. But then I have questions about the ending, like when they go back up to the bell tower, like, and then Judy falls off the bell tower because she gets shocked by the nun that's up there. Like, what was the nun doing up there? And like, that just confused me. I just didn't get that. Like, Okay.
Hey.
Well, I mean, it's an abbey, right?
She's on her
so
round.
she's just chilling.
It had to figure
probably
into the
doing
plot
nun
some way,
stuff,
or it was just by
praying.
happenstance that she was up there. When
Whatever.
All this stuff happened.
I think the nun heard, like, she's like, what the hell is going on in my bell tower.
It's just weird.
And she went to investigate the noise of these
but do
two,
you think thematically
startling
that
and terrified
it was
Judy
it was
and killing her.
destined for Judy to die in that way? Like, did she have to end? Okay.
Well, I think you can read it in a couple ways. I mean, I think you can see it as her getting her just desserts, which I think is a very Hitchcock way, a very misogynistic Hitchcock view. But like, what's interesting about Vertigo to me is if you compare it to some of his other films, Rear Window, Psycho, Strangers on a Train, like he definitely enjoys following people of loose morals or loose character or gray morals, but and Jimmy Stewart in Rope and in Rear Window is definitely not like a golly gee great guy. He's not the 50s romanticized hero that we think of Jimmy Stewart to be in Hitchcock movies. He's always a little dirty, even like Rear Window. He's a little scummy. But in Vertigo, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like he is not a good guy. And it gets all the more complicated the further the movie goes along. And I know that we have seen the film with people. In fact, this was the first film that played at the Alamo Drafthouse in Ashburn when they launched their secret society of film masons. And we saw it with Matt Constantine and his girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife, Rebecca.
Okay.
And she had never seen it before, and she was aghast. She was disgusted, and she could not contain her repulsion at them of the film. And so when the movie ended, she was just like venomous towards it. And like, while I understand that reaction, like that's also part of the point of the movie.
Right.
Like that's like, it is not a. There are not really likable characters, and Hitchcock is not a likable director within this realm of muddy characters anyway. And so you may finish Psycho, North by Northwest, and go like, that was a damn good time at the movies. Even if Psycho was, about a serial killer who loses himself in his split personality, you still go like, wow, that was thrilling. That was riveting. Vertigo,
movie,
you go like, I need a shower and I need some alone time.
I saw it and I was like, yeah, man, you got to talk me through this one. Because I remember you telling me that this was like one of your top 3 Hitchcocks. And I was on such a high from Psycho that I was so into watching this movie. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. And I'm enjoying just watching the filmmaking prowess of Hitchcock. I mean, I just think he's incredible with all these movies I'm watching. But just like with some of the characters and the story and some of the themes that are going on, this one was a little more difficult to kind of get through because I was just that character, man, which is, you're right, the loose morals, but it seems that Hitchcock likes kind of diving into the psyche of these type of characters.
Yeah, like I'll be curious as you continue to go, which I hope you do. I think you're going to encounter a few more movies that will leave you feeling the way that this film did.
Well, the one I have now.
But if you were to jump over to,
I really do want to see
say,
Rope, but I put in
Rope
Shadow
next,
of a Doubt,
or
so I'm gonna watch that one next. And
yeah. I don't think you're going to be as disturbed or bothered by Shadow of a Doubt. I think there is a character in Shadow of a Doubt who may be the worst character you've experienced yet in a Hitchcock movie. But he has some really fun, disgusting moments. But then Rope is really interesting. Strangers on a Train is probably another one.
That is, but I don't believe Strangers on the Train is.
I'm trying to remember what else is
I
in
know
that
there's a
box
few that I want to see.
Is The Man Who Knew Too Much on there?
Strangers on the Train and Lifeboat are like 2 that come to mind that I really want to check out, but unfortunately they're not in this particular box set. I don't know. Did they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got Marnie in there too. Marnie's really interesting, but honestly, I feel like you've seen the movies that you're going to love the most. And what's exciting now where you are here is you'll venture in and you will discover things that don't have as much cultural baggage. I think once you get past Strangers on a Train, I think you're pretty much free of the grand opinions that have formed over time. I don't know.
I wasn't expecting
I'm excited for you
because,
at
like
this
I said,
stage.
I've
But
enjoyed,
I knew
like I said,
Vertigo was
going
to
to
be hard.
Window, Psycho. I think those are the only three I've seen thus far. And then, now this one, and this is the only one that kind of left me, like Lisa said, that icky feeling, so.
Like sometimes I want to warn people about Vertigo.
Really?
Because like Vertigo recently toppled Citizen Kane on the BFI's top 100 list as being the best film of all time. It's not my favorite Hitchcock. It is in my top 3. It's probably number 3, right? Because Psycho's my favorite, Rear Window's my second favorite, and Vertigo's my third favorite, probably.
I think so.
With Shadow of a Doubt being number 4.
So, like I said, I'm excited to
like,
kind of dive more
it's
into,
definitely not a
the
crowd
box
pleaser.
set. And I'll, like I said, I got Shadow of a Doubt in there. And since it is one of your tops, I'm looking forward to checking that one out too. And, I'll be back to report on that one. Just a couple other quick things. Oh, actually, well, I know me and Lisa said that we're going to touch back in on Insecure around episode 6 of this season, but I did just want to mention that I enjoyed last week's episode, which was called Low Key Thankful, Thanksgiving episode. I love the fact that we got to spend more time with Issa and Molly and her siblings, because we really didn't see them much in the previous seasons. And I always love episodes like that where you can kind of spend time with their family, and I thought it was really, really cool to see that episode. And it made me think about the conversation you had last week about, Issa wanting to have a viable relationship before they kind of introduced or flirt with the idea of her and Lawrence getting back together, which, spoiler alert for anybody that has it, they kind of tease it. But in my personal opinion, I don't think that they're going to go down that road. I think they're kind of just, playing with the audience. But we'll get into that. We'll get into more of that a little bit later. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about the Last Dance documentary before I end my week in Dork. Now, okay, good, because I actually wanted to get your opinion, Brad, because I've been enjoying.
I've watched all of it.
It's because this has been like a shot of nostalgia for me, and like I said, it's like usually when I watch it, like I said, Sunday nights between The Last Dance and Insecure, like this is like. Tonight is like the night I look forward to the most, at least for the next few weeks. And so last week was the episodes they kind of focused in on Dennis Rodman, and then episode 4 focused a little bit more in on the head coach Phil Jackson. And like I said, for me, growing up in this era, being a diehard basketball fan, being a fan of the Bulls in the 90s, like seeing a lot of these highlights, seeing a lot of these clips, kind of takes me back to those moments. And like I've been texting back and forth with like one of my good friends who's a basketball fan, who's a sports fan, my friend Greg, and we just kind of been just reminiscing about these times like 30 some odd years ago. And it's just been a lot of fun. And seeing these episodes with like, Dennis Rodman, and hearing these stories about, him having to take a vacation, and they gave him 48 hours, and him yeah, dude, that story, the whole Carmen Electra, it was so good.
Such a good story. Carmen Electra in that interview is so great.
I feel like they left a major gap in Rodman's story, though, because they talk about how he was like a really upstanding, quiet kid. Yeah. And then he played in Detroit, right?
Yeah, with the Pistons.
Who
were like, terrors on the court.
Exactly. But then but then there's like a jump in time, and then all of a sudden he's got the hair thing, and he's acting out in a way that is indicative of issues.
Yeah,
But like they
Well,
they
I
don't
think-
fill in the huge gap of like when exactly did he go
Transformation
off the
happen.
rails a little bit? I don't know. I
I
think
would say
Brad said it better.
transformation.
Yeah,
Like,
transformation.
I'll tell you what,
Easily,
watching the
easily.
Rodman episode, like I go, oh, there's a 10-part documentary about Rodman.
Hell yeah.
Right? And,
Because it raised, I mean, that one episode raised so many questions for me, and I was 100% intrigued.
and as a kid, Rodman scared me because I'm, like little straight arrow child,
I mean,
who found
yeah,
like pierced
man,
ears on men
hearing
scary.
those stories about it, and then when
But
Michael
now
Jordan
watching
talked
it, I go
about,
like, dude, I love Rodman. I'm
when
Team
he came
Rodman.
back from Vegas after that 48-hour vacation, quote unquote vacation, and he was like, we got to try to get him back in shape. So Phil Jackson had this thing in practice where they would have to run around, and Michael Jordan was telling him, like, look guys, like, don't run too fast, like leave it to a jog, like a slow jog to a walk, because we ain't trying to. And then Rodman just like sprinted in front of them, and then the team had to catch up with him. And it's like Michael Jordan knew that then, like he knew that Rodman was always focused. He just needed almost like a mental break, but he was always there. And it's just interesting because you can almost kind of get that even watching him play back in the 90s, that Rodman was always different, but you knew that, I mean, first of all, just as far as like his knowledge of the game and how to play the game was always there, but he was always focused in. You just knew that it was always something that could ultimately distract him, but he was always either physically or mentally, he was always prepared to play. And I just found that fascinating about him. Oh yeah.
Well, I didn't know that Rodman was like the rebound guy, and I think that's an interesting idea and how he fits into the Bulls as the rebound guy, and how Rodman was aware enough to go like,
And
okay, well, I'm never going to
man.
be like the high scorer, but who needs the fame of being the high scorer? Let me just be a badass at rebounds. And I just thought, like, oh, that's interesting.
And that's why I wanted
Brad
to
and I
get,
both come at
because
this series with the
with the
perspective of someone who never watched
sports. I talked a little bit about Scottie Pippen and everything, but since you guys have been watching it, I really wanted to kind of get your perspective, not being like sports fans, and just kind of looking at it as kind of like this extensive documentary. Like, what is your take on the thing, on it so far?
Well, to me, there's something very
Michael Jordan. Yeah.
fascinating about being the psychology of being on a team with someone like Michael Jordan, because there's just no way that you're really going to be a peer. And as a person who, everybody's had to work in a team, and it's always good to have like a strong leader, but even though he is not the coach, everything defers to Michael Jordan. What does Michael Jordan think about Dennis Rodman going on a vacation? What does Michael Jordan think about, who's going to be on the field? What is it called?
Court.
In the rink. We saw how that affected Dennis Rodman. I also found it interesting how that affected Scottie Pippen.
Well, this is my big takeaway. One, I love stories. So you tell me you're going to tell me a 10-hour story about this, cultural phenomenon, because Michael Jordan isn't just like a basketball player. He's a guy who, when we were kids, I
knew who he was.
I was wearing Air Jordans, and I never stepped foot on a court. I hated but I had his starting lineup action figures. That's how big of an opposing force Michael Jordan was. But what's fascinating about this documentary series is how before Phil Jackson came on, Michael Jordan was a badass on the court, but he had never taken home a title. Like, his teams weren't winning. It wasn't until like Phil Jackson came on and showed Michael Jordan how a team goes to the the
It's
championships.
interesting too,
a team
man,
gets there,
'cause,
not a
like,
guy.
One of the big
And
things
that's
that I
the story
remember,
that's
of
being
course,
told
it was
over
always
the
those battles
6
with the
episodes
Detroit
we've seen
Pistons
so
in the
far.
late '80s, and the big thing that I think last week that they talked about, and this has been a point of conversation post last week's episode, was that whole no handshake gate when the Detroit Pistons, and I remember that when they beat them, because that was the year they went to the finals against the Lakers. That was 90-91.
Yeah.
So when they beat Detroit, and Isaiah Thomas was like, well, we're just gonna walk off the court, and you could see, and I was talking to my friend Greg about it, and I was like, dang, Michael Jordan is still bitter about this 30 years, and this is even after he's won 6 championships. Like, he is still pissed about them not.
Yeah,
and I
he's
get it.
pissed.
Don't get me wrong, I get it, because that's sportsmanship. But it's just interesting to me that 30 years later, you still hold that grudge against Isaiah Thomas for not shaking your hand at the end of the game. I just found that fascinating, because for me, I would think, oh, you know what? I done won championships. I'm past that. All right, it's whatever. But I get the competitive nature and who Michael Jordan is, but I don't know. I just found that interesting that he still kind of is salty about that.
Well, what you see over the course of that documentary is that he has a memory, right? And he does not let things go. And I think that speaks to his passion and his drive and his compulsion. Like, that's how he became who he is. He does not forget. Like, he commits.
But he's also extraordinarily wholesome, I find, and he has a strong sense of what's right and wrong. But he's also practiced talking about this shit.
Yeah,
for
I don't know if I
years.
would use the word wholesome with Michael Jordan. I would not say wholesome. I would say reserved, focused, and on a mission.
Well, maybe not wholesome, but he has a sense of righteousness.
What they dive into, because
I'll give you that.
There's some other stuff with Michael Jordan that may not put him in a pretty light if it comes. If it comes out, because I know.
Oh, well, I'm riveted because I don't know the first thing, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got 6 more left, so we'll see.
Because he's coming off pretty sterling so far, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Oh, shit.
I think it's.
Yeah.
My takeaway is that the film doesn't necessarily have a point of view on whether Michael Jordan is a good guy or a bad guy. Mm-hmm. I think the documentary, from what I've seen so far, has been fairly fair based on my limited knowledge of the events.
Yeah.
But I also know, like, when they were talking about that Pistons game, and Isaiah Thomas was like trying to say, well, this is just what you did. This is just what you did. And then Michael Jordan will say, go back and look at my games. I always shook the hands, like when the Lakers, when when the Lakers beat us, or I beat the Lakers or whatever.
Exactly.
We still shook their hands. And then the documentary
like I said, for
proves
me,
that point for Michael.
It's just
shows
a shot
the
of nostalgia. And I'm loving going back and watching this stuff and being able to kind of connect with my friends and reminisce about those days in the 90s when, it's so much fun. But I definitely wanted to get a perspective from people who don't really, watch sports, just how you feel the story is kind of being told. And that's cool that it's still working for you guys. That's cool. I like that. I know. I don't mean to discount that.
I watch Major
Brad.
League every year, Brian. I watch sports.
But yeah, so I think that's all. Well, of course, we'll talk about Bad Education, which I watched earlier today. I actually enjoyed that film. I did. I enjoyed it, but I guess we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I guess that's all I got. Did some rewatches, of course. But yeah, I guess you could say that's my week in Dork. Yeah. I have a line.
Brian,
so
real quick, you got to watch The
after
Birds.
that,
The
I'm gonna
Birds
do
is
Rope,
probably
and
the
then
next
after
big
Rope, I was
cultural
gonna go to
Hitchcock
Birds. So
movie.
those are my next 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
No, and that's not in the.
All right, cool.
I'll double check, but I don't know if that's.
How
in the
could we
box
forget
set.
the birds?
I know. And Dial M for Murder is another big one.
Man, that's awesome.
To Catch a Thief. Yeah, he's made so many Stone Cold classics, but yeah.
All right. Wife Dork, how was your week in Dork?
My week in Dork was good. There is one incident that I just want to touch on quickly. If anybody's listening who was at our Q&A with the cast and crew of the independent film Cut to the Chase, I am going to talk briefly about what happened. I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but I would understand if you want to skip ahead. I'm going to talk about it less than a minute. So Brad and I were hanging with Andy Geyerson and helping out on a Zoom Q&A with Bryce Weaver. Blaine Weaver, excuse me. And a bunch of his cast and crew from his 2016 film Cut to the Chase, which is a super fun crime film made on a shoestring budget that has some twists and turns in it, and it was a legitimate fun watch.
I think I think it was pretty fun, and Lance Hendrickson's got a small role in it, but a very strong, effective role. I think Blaine Weaver as the star is great in it.
Yeah.
We're talking more than a minute though, Lisa.
Okay, so we were Zoom bombed with some graphic, really disturbing material, and I did not know, like, I had heard the term Zoom bomb, but I just assumed that Zoom bomb was like a Rick roll or like a Baba Booey. And it never even occurred to me that it would be something very disturbing and upsetting. And in response to that, Alamo Winchester is going to completely change how they do their Q&A. We've already been doing some online tests and things like that. But it really was a very upsetting thing for everybody involved. And so I just want to put the word out there because I wish that someone had warned me, because that if you're in a Zoom you're not necessarily going to want to go into a Zoom conversation where the Zoom link has been made public. Because if you're hitting a Zoom link that is, like this was, very well publicized, you could find it on Vimeo, you could find it on the Facebook page, you can find it on Twitter. Whoever gets into that Zoom room, you're essentially inviting into your home, and they can put whatever they want to up on your screens if the share screen is not disabled. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that if you were there, everything, Andy, Alamo Drafthouse Winchester and It Modcast is going to do everything in their power to never let something like that happen again. And
the authorities were notified as well.
So there's nothing that we can do that could make it undone. But at the same time, we're just trying to think onward and upward. Community is such a huge part of being a fan and being part of the conversation around film. And we don't want terrorists to take that away from us. I use the term terrorist loosely, but so that's all I wanted to say about that. So be very careful entering Zooms. Don't go in a Zoom room with someone you would not want in your home. That's how I feel about that. Other than that experience, I've had a great week in Dork. Brad and I have been rewatching the Superman films.
Yep, we sure have.
Starting with the Christopher Reeve Superman. So we've watched Superman, Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman 4.
Yeah.
And then I watched... and then for the first Quest for Peace, and then I watched for the first time Superman Returns with Brandon Routh.
Oh.
And it's funny how the quality of those films, like if you're going to ask me to rank them, worst to best, it would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Each one progressively worse than the last. That's not exactly accurate.
You mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
One is the best.
Yeah.
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 But I was ranking it best to worst. No,
you
worst
were
to best.
ranking it worst to best. Okay.
I'm talking too fast.
Yeah.
But yes, and then we also watched on Saturday our date night to keep with our. We watched another Coppola film, and I watched Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula for the first time. It was okay.
That movie's great.
I liked it fine.
She directed
It's
that,
great,
correct?
Lisa.
We watched Unicorn Store.
Oh yeah.
She did, and it was super experimental and very cute. And Samuel L. Jackson plays kind of a magical figure in that movie, and I thought it had a really nice message. I hate to say it because it sounds diminutive, but the word that I would use for this movie is cute. It was super cute. I enjoyed it a lot. But what I have really been celebrating this week is I'm watching through with my lover, with the husband, Dork, Brad Gullickson.
Oh, good. I was
He's
waiting to see how you were going to end that sentence.
He's been introducing the 90s procedural television series Homicide: Life on the Street to me. And
No,
I
know about
loving
it.
this
I know it was
show. Have
filmed
either
in
of you
Baltimore.
watched Homicide:
I believe,
Life on the
when
Street?
Me and Darren.
I have
actually,
not.
How we kind of first met back when we was doing Frankie's Heaven. It was an independent film we were kind of shooting down in Baltimore, and some of the locations we would shoot was like around where they would shoot Homicide: Life on the Street. This was like back in like 2001 and stuff like that. So I was familiar with the show, and I'm familiar with that famous episode that Vincent D'Onofrio was in. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet, so don't ruin that for Lisa.
I'm about halfway through season 3.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have lived the life on the street, I am at the point where a bunch of cops have been caught in that have received bullet wounds. I'm trying not to do spoilers.
Yeah, they've been shot. 3 cops have been shot.
3 cops have been shot. Emotions are high. Everybody's playing the blame game, blaming themselves and blaming others. And I am so wrapped up in this story. This TV series is kind of an interesting entity of itself because they were really trying to capture it's like television verite. They were really trying to capture realism. So the show, like Brian said, was shot on location in Baltimore
with a bunch of Baltimore actors.
Oh, wow.
and
Hollywood people too, but
it was shot on 16 millimeter.
yeah.
So you get this kind of documentary sense of like this homicide crime unit, but every person on this staff has a flair for the theatrical.
Yeah.
So Andre Brower or
Kyle Secor, Melissa Leo,
they're all
Carl Johnson. Yaphet Kotto has never had the space that he has in Homicide: Life on the Street.
But
he is brilliant in this
amazing.
series.
But they all have the penchant for soliloquy.
Yeah.
Like they're all going off and making these amazing speeches all of the time. And it's really, it's really dramatic. And I enjoy all of those performances so much.
Well, what's great about Homicide: Life on the Street is how the stories bleed from one episode to the next, and how that really was not part of television in this time. The most popular cop show of this era was Law and Order, which Homicide: Life on the Street would sometimes cross over with. But the first episode where Kyle Secor as Detective Bayless investigates the murder of this young girl, Adina Watson, and that case goes unsolved, and the fact that he never solves that case, that he carries that mystery and that pain with him through the entire series.
But that still isn't really done as much today. If you think about CSI, like this is not like a murder of the week kind of show.
Right. It's a character-based show, and it's why people didn't watch it.
They were trying to kind of capture the bleakness and like the draining existential threat. I'm quoting from the Wikipedia page, but like trying to capture what it was really like to be a homicide detective. And there's this really, like, up in the office, they have everybody's name on a board, and then underneath each detective's name is just a list of last names in black or in red. And if it's written in black, that means the case is closed. And if the name is in red, that means the case is still open. And cases, like, there's always multiple cases running throughout each episode with each detective, and some of them are open and some of them are closed. And that's just how it is. And each of these different characters have a home life that is impacted by them seeing and encountering death and the ugliest parts of humanity every single day. So not only do you go, oh, I really hope they catch that guy that caught their kid, you're also going like, I hope that Bo finally gets to see his kids, and I hope that Kay can, people can get over her being a woman so she can just be the best damn detective in that agency. You care about these characters, and you see how. Also, I'm really getting into that glimpse into the sacredness of the partnership for cops and for detectives, because that's something I've never been in a situation where I've had to 100% entrust my life and my well-being to one of my peers, and how that can become, for some, like siblings, practically, or for others, like a romantic relationship with everything except for
the romance.
So I like that. They're all in this high stakes situation. Emotions are always high, and there's always drama happening, whether it's petty drama of Munch going off on some speech on why does he have to go into the office and see a Christmas tree up, or it can be, hey, somebody has taken a bullet, and was I responsible because I opened the door? That kind of thing. So Brad and I have been living on the streets of Baltimore.
It's been great. Like, I'm so happy you're enjoying it as much as you are, because I've wanted to introduce you to this series for a long time, but you're not a cop show type of person. And, whenever I've had like SVU on in the background, you don't want to have anything to do with it.
I don't need to hear about a special victim.
Yeah.
I only want ordinary victims.
Yeah,
very unspecial.
I know.
Jeez.
I'm just happy that you're digging it. But in revisiting it, you see how clearly different it is from other shows of its kind, and how it does feel like something you would see on a stage rather than on a television screen.
I imagine many students who are auditioning for theater school could pull monologues from Homicide Live on the Street very easily.
Well, for me, for a long time, I was always like, Andre Braugher is one of the greatest actors in
He's
history,
amazing on this show.
And he never really got a role immediately after Homicide Life on the Street until Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So I'm happy that Andre Braugher was rediscovered through comedy of all things.
Well, the reception from what I was doing on my deep research on Wikipedia, that this show, even though review-wise, it was extremely well received. It's earned all kinds of awards, but apparently nobody ever watched it.
Which is hilarious because, it speaks to how television was viewed 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because it's, even though it has the reputation of no one having watched it, and when you talk to people, you go like, Darren, have you seen Homicide Life on the Street? Brian, have you seen Homicide Life on the Street? They go, no. It still lasted 7 seasons and a movie.
Yeah, it went into syndication, baby.
Homicide Life on the Street in 2020 would not get 7 seasons and a movie. It would get 6 episodes and dead.
Yeah. Where we are in this particular series is interesting because there's been kind of a tonal there's going to be a tonal shift, because there has been in the history of this show, there's been a lot of pressure from NBC to make the show more marketable. We've already seen the exit of one actor, and now like 3 are in the hospital.
Polito.
Yeah, Joe Polito, rest in pieces. We've seen 3 cops mortally injured. I know they're not all going to make it, but there's going to be a turnover of actors in this show. And from what Brad tells me, they're going to be a lot more central casting type. Like reading the Wikipedia. So the Leaving of Jon Polito is one of the most dramatic things that happens in this show. And the ripple effects of the way he left, like in story-wise, in the context of the show, like the way that Crissetti left the force was something that you see the ripple effects throughout this series and throughout the what's the word for a group of cops that work
Community.
together?
I said community. I think community works.
Yeah, but I don't think it's the word that either of us
squad?
are looking. Yes, the squad. Yeah. You see everybody dealing with the emotional impact of the way that he left. But then, like, when you read the Wikipedia, like, the Wikipedia says that the reason he left is there are too many uggos on the squad, and someone's got to go. So it's going to be Jon Polito. I'm like, that would hurt my feelings if they're like, we gotta usher him out. Because we got to bring in Isabella Hoffman as a Russert, because we got to get some hotness up in here. And so she joins the cast in season 3. But from what Brad tells me, there's going to be kind of a turnover. And that makes me sad, because I love everybody on this show. And it's been hard. It's been hard to see them lying in hospital beds, and it's going to be hard to see them go.
Even the attractive actors who joined the cast, Lisa, are still pretty darn good.
Yeah. So,
and there's been great guest stars. Like there's Brian mentioned Vincent D'Onofrio coming up, but we've already had Robin Williams. You're about to meet Steve Buscemi.
I'm so excited for myself.
There's a lot of really great guest stars. Marcia Gay Harden, all kinds of.
And then you get to see like kind of proto stars who are getting some screen time where you go, hey, I recognize that guy.
Yeah. Melissa Leo went on to become, Oscar-nominated actress of The Fighter.
Yeah. So what's weird and sad is Homicide: Life on the Street is not streaming anywhere.
Nope.
Brad and I went into our television box set closet and dug this out, and we're watching it off of discs like pilgrims. So,
DVD sets that I paid $100 a pop. 7 seasons. I spent $100 a pop on these seasons from Tower Records.
So I went on Just Watch to see if there was anywhere I could recommend to see this. Brad said that you could buy it on Amazon.
You can buy the whole series for $70. I spent $700. You can get it for $70.
And I'm saying blind buy. It's worth it because it's an amazing show. It might be up there with some of my favorites, like Boston Legal, Gilmore Girls.
Big words.
Like I'm only 2.5 seasons in, but just what I've seen already has just been so powerful to me. So I highly recommend it.
Okay. Brad, how was your weekend, Dork?
Great. I did all those things that Lisa said. I would just say that rewatching Christopher Reeve's Superman films makes me just go like, Darren is right. Henry Cavill is the best Superman.
Yeah.
Yay.
I really like the 1978 film up until Lex Luthor gets involved. I think the first half of Superman the movie is brilliant, but so much of the back half of that movie doesn't work for me. And the sequels, none of them work. And because Superman 4 is so bad, I think Superman 4 is my favorite of the sequels.
I wonder if Batman 66 really is to blame, because since then, I feel like so much about a good superhero movie is it takes itself seriously but not too seriously, where I feel like this Lex Luthor is way too jokey.
Yes. I see what you're saying there. That's not necessarily what I think the problem is. I think the problem is that they don't understand the character of Superman, and they don't know how to create scenarios that are dramatically interesting for Superman to deal with.
I I don't know, because to me, I don't know. I find it just too goofy.
I mean, yes. I mean, when Richard Donner leaves and they bring on Richard Lester, they turn it into a comedy series. And yeah, now is that the fault of Batman 66, or is that the fault of hiring Richard Lester to do your movies? Is that the fault of the Salkinds to... Well, because the Salkinds don't understand Superman.
Right.
They don't understand Superman.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem. And then, Superman 4, Christopher Reeve wanted to do this anti-nuclear arms storyline. And, it's nice in theory, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
To me, my favorite guff of these Superman films is they keep because when I talk to other comic book people, superhero people, their main complaint about Superman is he's just too powerful, right? He's super strong, he can fly, nobody can beat him. And Golan Globus are like, do you know what he needs? More powers. He should be able to pick things up with his mind telekinetically.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
He should they're just no, pile more on.
Yeah, more powers.
He needs more cards in his deck.
But I mean, I do love Christopher Reeve's performance, and when you watch Superman Returns and you see how Brandon Routh interprets the transition from Kal-El to Clark Kent, he can't do that switch the way that Christopher Reeve can. Even though I don't know if I love that switch.
Yeah.
But Reeve is so effective as the goofy, doltish, lame brain Clark Kent. It really, really works. And Brendan Routh cannot.
Well, because it seems kind of he's being a klutz and acting like he's borderline incompetent just for his own amusement.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
he could
Superman look like a psychotic.
I don't know. It's funny.
But watching Superman Returns, which is easily the dullest Superman movie of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because Bryan Singer was just so obsessed with trying to replicate every step of Superman the movie and getting it all wrong.
Right.
From the color scheme on. Mm-hmm. So I would say Superman Returns is easily my least favorite of the films that we've watched. We are going to continue on this week, and we're going to do Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and Justice League. And I'm so excited to get to the Henry Cavill years. And I remember when Darren made that declaration several years ago that Henry Cavill was the best Superman. It's like, Darren's smoking crack.
Don't say smoking crack.
Smoking crack, losing his mind. And no, Darren was not smoking crack. He was right. He was right.
Yeah, we do have to salute you, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm excited. You know what? I'm going to rewatch those two this week, too.
You should. It's fun. I mean, as much as we're slagging on it, it's fun.
Yeah. They're fun. They're fun, but they're all...
I just mean the Henry Cavill ones.
Okay, good. Good, smart move.
Superman the movie still has some good stuff in it, but I don't know about those other ones. And Superman 2, when he turns his back on the world for Lois Lane, you're just like, what the hell are you doing, man? And then he gets his powers back, and he goes to the bar, and he beats the shit out of the dude. I was like, Superman's not going to do that.
But then he erases Lois Lane's memory with a kiss, which is not one of his powers.
Well, it is in these movies. And then in Superman 3, he wakens her back up, goes, hey, remember, I'm actually Clark Kent. She's like, oh yeah, I forgot all about that. Don't worry, I'm going to wipe your brain again. Has Clark Kent been mind wiping Lois Lane constantly since the second film?
If she gets some kind of mysterious tumor, we know why.
Yeah, it's those mind wipe kisses. And this is also the point in the podcast where I remind people that you should all be watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars. We only have one episode left. The last episode took us all the way up to the moment where Darth Sidious executed Order 66, and we got to see how Captain Rex and Ahsoka dealt with that. And it was just as painful and horrible as I thought it was going to be.
So there's one episode left.
And really dramatically delicious. Star Wars: The Clone Wars is still the best Star Wars. So yeah. One episode left. And like Revenge of the Sith, it can't end on a happy note, right? But at least with Revenge of the Sith, they go like, well, the Skywalker twins have been born, and look at these babies on Tatooine and Alderaan. There's hope for us yet. But if you've seen The Last Jedi, you know, like that hope amounts to pretty much nothing.
No.
and Luke Skywalker just continues the legacy of failure as a Skywalker. So you can't like flash to the Skywalker twins at the end of the Clone Wars for a moment of hope. So the hope is Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex, and them being the first sparks of the rebellion that will carry on all the way through the resistance of the new Star Wars sequels. But Darth Maul, there's a moment in this latest episode between Ahsoka Tano and Darth Maul where they have to survive aboard a ship in which the Order 66 has been given, and all the clone troopers is turned on them, and it's just Maul and Tano. And that you're like, I did not anticipate this. And
so
this is the
best.
timeline.
I just had a quick question about that. So
Sam
with,
Witwer as Maul
Revenge
is
of the
so
Sith
good.
and A New Hope, there is it's like what is it the 30 year?
Yeah.
20 or
No, it's like
that's right.
yeah, it's like
I think he's like in his early 20s,
it's
maybe,
Mark
so it's
Hamill's
probably like a
birth
20-some-odd
timeline,
year,
right? So how old is
22.
Mark Hamill and Luke's in the first Star Wars? Like 18 years.
So the Clone Wars. So when in Star Wars Rebels is
I'm guessing it's like 20 years at most.
A few years before A New Hope, right?
I think it's 10 years before A New Hope. I think it's
so Solo
during the
was
Solo,
before
like Solo happens and then Rebels happens.
Got you. Okay.
So you're like a decade before A New Hope. Yeah. Solo is before Rebels, and the Clone Wars takes place between 3 years. The 3 years between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and the last 3 episodes take place at the start of Revenge of the Sith. So the last episode is going to take place right after Order 66 has been given. So Obi-Wan Kenobi has just killed General Grievous. Mace Windu has just been murdered by Anakin Skywalker.
No.
And Obi-Wan and Anakin are going to have their Mustafar duel. But I honestly don't know where Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex are going to go after this moment. Like, I knew this week's episode was going to be Order 66, but what's the final episode? Like, the last thing I would like to see happen is kind of exchange between Tano and Anakin Skywalker, but they might not be able to get that because of what goes down on Mustafar. And in Rebels, when Ahsoka Tano finally confronts Darth Vader, she does not know that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. And there's a moment in that Rebels episode where she might start to get the light bulb over her head.
Because in Revenge of the Sith, after he kills Mace Windu, doesn't he go straight to Mustafar? I don't know what's going to happen in the final episode, and I'm really, really excited.
Yeah,
so he wouldn't... Yeah, so he couldn't have an interaction.
Yeah. I mean, they could have some kind of exchange.
But it would have to be before that
meet up on a planet before Mustafar. I mean, you know, they're. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like she. Well, I don't know about that. She knows that Anakin. She didn't know that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker, but I think she will realize that Anakin has turned evil, that her master is a youngling killer, you know? And like, and every time I revisit the Clone Wars and the prequels, I go, yeah. Anakin Skywalker killed a bunch of babies.
I'm excited,
like he cut down a bunch of children, and he's on my lunchbox.
Either
maybe he shouldn't be on my lunchbox.
I'm gonna send you this link because you got me super excited to watch this, and I went to this link that shows you like the order of how you should watch Clone Wars, and I was going to get your opinion if that actually kind of coincides with what you were kind of putting together as well.
I would love to see that link because I'm writing a
like
ranking of the entire franchise
right
now, and I would like to see what others have said. Well, what's funny about it is I've convinced a couple people to watch Clone Wars, and they've all started at the beginning. And like my friend Valerie messaged me on Facebook the other day, and she's like, Brad, I'm in second season, and I'm not really enjoying this, and you're telling me this is the best Star Wars? Are you just being a Brad right now? Are you crazy with your crazy Hellboy 2019 opinions on me? And I don't know. Now, I have gone back this week and also watched half of the first season, and certainly the first season is not as good as where it is now, but I am enjoying quite a bit of the first season, and I think the first 5 episodes get a lot right, but it is not the brilliant thing that season 7 has become. And my memory is that Clone Wars doesn't become genius or the bee's knees until Darth Maul returns, and that's like season 4. And that's when, like, his storyline becomes really interesting, and Ahsoka Tano starts to assert herself more than Anakin Skywalker, and Dave Filoni is finally allowed to start revealing the darkness inside Anakin Skywalker, because the first 4 seasons of Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker is still like, episode 1, episode 2 Skywalker, where he's like the hero, the champion. But we all know that he's a child killer. And, so I think season 4 is really where Clone Wars starts to kick ass, even though I like a lot about seasons 1 through 3.
Okay, cool. I'm excited, man.
But send me that link, and I'll point you. I'll tell you if that's a good place to follow or not. But that's my weekend dork.
All right. My weekend dork has been blah.
Oh, no.
I haven't been watching a lot of movies. I've been playing a lot of video games. And that's cool. But as far as like new movies, I haven't been watching a lot of movies, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Do you think that's because of the situation outside our dork caves?
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, when like there'll be times when I'm going to get Sia, or even when I'm going to work or coming home from work, and I'll be driving and I'll see everything's closed and it's like a lot less traffic, and I'll just be thinking about like, damn, I miss going to the movies. Like I miss going to the movies. I mean, I didn't realize how much I went to the movies until I couldn't go to the movies anymore. I mean, I had an idea that I would go regularly, but like the complete absence of, the ability to be able to do that, I don't know, like that silence is deafening. It's one of those types.
I think we're all suffering from a lack of options. Like, it's just like before we were talking about, it's Brian's birthday, and Brian is like, I'm going to say the words that came out of your mouth. That's rude. But Brian was talking about, like, I just at least like the option of going out. Like, I don't have to go out for my birthday, but I'd like the option to go out. And like, there's only so many walks around the neighborhood you can take where you're like, I've seen all of the things.
We did discover a new path this week.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
But like,
was that there the whole time?
I feel like I am, my defense mechanism is to like force myself to celebrate things so that I don't actually focus on the negative. And so, like, okay, Lisa, now's the time where we're going to watch Homicide: Life on the Street and treat it the way we would Black Widow is. If Black Widow had come out this weekend, if we'd gone to AwesomeCon this weekend, if Free Comic Book Day had actually happened this weekend. Like, this weekend, so many rad things were supposed to happen and they did not. And if I focus on it, it's such a bummer. So I totally get that, Darren.
We understand.
Yeah. So, but what I did finally do, what I haven't afforded the opportunity to do, is I finally got to watch Infinity War and Endgame like back to back, like straight through. I had been wanting to do that for a while, but I just hadn't been doing it, because when I would have an opportunity to do that, I would end up going to the movies or something like that. But anyway, I finally got to do that, and
Any revelations? Any new insights? See you back to back?
No. I mean, I still like Infinity War. I mean, Endgame more. I like, of the two, I like Endgame more. There were little stupid things that I picked up that for whatever reason I didn't pick up like the first however many times I've seen. Like for instance, when in Infinity War, it's not even like a big deal, but it was for me, like I didn't catch it until the other day. When in the very beginning, when Tony and Pepper are walking in the park, this is Tony's first scene in the movie, right before Doctor Strange opens up that portal and comes through and is like, yo, we need your help. Tony is telling Pepper about the dream that he had.
Right.
You know, he's like, remember how when you dream that you pee in your sleep and then you wake up and then you really peed on yourself? And so he was talking about like he dreamed they had a kid together, and he told her, he said, and we named the kid after your eccentric uncle. What was his name? Morgan. And like, for whatever reason, like I never paid attention to the name. Like I never listened to I don't know, like it just never stuck out with me that in Endgame when they finally show like his child, his daughter, like her name is, it's a variation of that, like, right? It's Morgan, because he called her Morgana. Yeah. So, like, I don't know, like, for whatever reason, like, when I watched that the other day, I was like, oh, like, Morgan, they talk about her, like, in Infinity War. I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, I didn't notice that the umpteenth times I had seen it before, so I don't know, like, but it was just little stuff. Like, for me, at this point, I'm just going through looking at, like, VFX detail and just this is smaller like things like off in the corner of the screen, like just looking at the effects work that those people put into that, like just the long hours to render, just the way things look. I don't know, I was just taking it in on as a whole, just instead of just thinking about a character arc or whatever, I was just sitting back and just being, just letting the spectacle of it all like wash over me and stuff like that. And that rewatch is prompted by that. You have all these filmmakers who are doing these watch parties, and they'll go online and they'll live tweet like there'll be the movie or whatever, and then they'll be talking about like, details that were previously unknown and stuff like that. So anyway, like a couple of days ago, last week, maybe it was like a week or two ago, like the Russos had just tweeted this audio of the theater audience's reaction to like the end of Endgame, and just hearing like those people in there, and then just remembering being in the theater during that scene. I was like, man, that was pretty incredible. And so that made me want to go back and rewatch Endgame. And I was like, well, you know what? I got the time. Let me just do my back-to-back Infinity War watch with it. But yeah, those are pretty phenomenal cinematic achievements. Like especially when you just take that particular story right there, like the enormity of it and what it was supposed to do just within the confines of its own runtime, but also within the context of like what the MCU is, what had been started with Jon Favreau's Iron Man, like, to have the responsibility to tie up as best as you can, like, all, over 10 years of movies and stories. I don't know, like it was it's a pretty astounding narrative feat and cinematic feat, and just to see it and then also have some time removed from it and to be able to go back and look at it and be like, okay, was it just the hype of it being what it is, or is there really something to these two pictures that like actually give it like substance and weight? And it does. The rest of the films in the MCU are where almost all of the, because these two films are just payoff, really. I mean, they're just payoff. So the rest of the MCU films are what give, I feel like, these two films a lot of the weight, And so I don't know. It was a really cool rewatch. I watched this show called Midnight Gospel. So I don't watch Adventure Time. I know of Adventure Time. And apparently, like, this new Netflix show called Midnight Gospel is from the creator of Adventure Time. Adventure Time, in and of itself, and like I said, I don't know like any specific storylines. I don't need any details of it. I just know, like, I've seen like an episode or two, like here or there. I just know it's a weird show. Like, just random, like, weird stuff happens in that show. So I hear, oh, there's a new show on Netflix. It's called Midnight Gospel. It's from the creator of Adventure Time. That's all I knew of it, and it wasn't even so. I don't even know why I watched it because I'm not a fan of Adventure Time. I don't even know anything about it. I don't know why I watched Midnight Gospel, but I did, and holy shit, is that shit? Yeah, I don't know that pretty crazy. I don't know that there's a more. That show is fucking nuts. It is crazy. I don't know if it was okay. Full disclaimer.
It was created by a collaboration with the Adventure Time guy and stand-up comedian and known weirdo Duncan Trussell. So Duncan Trussell has a podcast called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, but he is one of those comedians who are way into psychedelics and DMT, and he's way into like spiritualism and all of that stuff. And I dip in and out of his podcast because the weirdness does get to me. He does get some really cool guests, but it's wild. The fact that he has a show on Netflix.
It makes sense now that you say that. Like, did you say that now? Okay, because that's all that show is like not even just psychedelics. It's just this weird, like, existential. The thing is, I'm gonna try this on my own experiment, because when I was watching the show, I was thinking to do this, but I was so mesmerized by what I was seeing. Anyway, if you watch the show without the sound, you wouldn't guess at what the characters were saying on the screen. Like, if you cut the show, if you walked in a room and somebody's watching that show and you couldn't see the TV and you just heard it, you never in a million years would you picture what's on the screen being on the screen. It's almost like somebody just went off on their own and just decided to animate something and just went to someone else who had something totally unrelated recorded as far as like dialogue and just meshed the two. Like, it is nuts. Like, but
well, the original idea comes from, so he starts each podcast doing like this crazy, like, I don't know how he gets advertisers, because he will have like talking about Quip or something, and then he'll have like some kind of weird trippy story based on that. He's just like one of those like stream of consciousness, hyper intellectual, but definitely twisted guys who could just monologue.
That's stream of consciousness. That's what an episode is. It's just a stream of consciousness. Is it one guy's voice?
Is it one guy's voice, or there's characters?
There's characters in it, but they're having like stream of consciousness like conversations. You know, like 5-10 minutes into the conversation of the episode, you go, okay, what the fuck does this have to do? Like, okay, where is this going? What's the point in all of this? All of it is like that. It's just like it really is. It feels like this dude, like the main character. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. It feels like, I don't necessarily say he's having an existential crisis, but the show just looks like, and it feels like it. I don't know. Like, when you say the stuff that guy talks about, that's what the show is. That's what this show. It's just animated, but the visuals are as left field and unexpected as what this guy is saying. So it matches. It marries perfectly, even though you can separate the two and look at them and they don't feel like what's being said and what's being shown does not feel like they overlap, feel like they overlay. It doesn't match up. But when you watch it, it feels perfect. Like, I don't know, it's weird. That show is nuts.
I have to check it out. But like I said, like, just listening to Duncan Trussell's brain audibly, like, can sometimes weird me out. But sometimes I find it really enlightening and insightful. I think that as an individual, he has an amazing brain, and like he's created an amazing experience with his life, you know?
Yeah.
So I just think it's amazing. Like, this goes to show like the height that stand-up is at in coolness, where someone who is as off the wall and subcultural as Duncan Trussell has a show on Netflix, and it's more or less exactly the show that he wants to do, is
that's straight up,
fascinating to me. And like, to me, it'll be interesting because now, like a lot of the power that I feel like stand-ups have as creators is go like, you don't want to make what I want to make? Well, who gives a shit? Because I can just go on the road. Yeah. But now, during this epidemic, like, they can't go on the road, and so their main bargaining chip is gone. Yeah. And I'll be interested to see, like, because like the last comedy boom we had was in the late 80s and early 90s, and then we are in the height of another comedy boom, and like before, like the comedy bust happened because of just oversaturation. Just like you couldn't, you know, like all of a sudden every city has multiple comedy clubs and they're all competing against each other. And now, like, the bust is going to be because of an epidemic. Like, when's the next time, like, we're talking about when's the next time we're going to feel like going to the movies? When's the next time you're going to want to go downstairs in the DC Improv, where you're literally, like, there's no oxygen down there. You're just, you know, inhaling other people's laugh droplets, like, you know, it's wild. But like the fact that Duncan Trussell has a show, like, is completely wild. And if that intrigues you, I suggest just dipping into his podcast. I definitely, like, off the top of my head, like, some of my favorite interviews have been with Mike Kaplan. He did one with the author of the memoir, The Answer to the Riddle Is Me, which is one of my favorite memoirs I've ever read. He's done episodes with Moshe Kasher. He briefly did a podcast with Natasha Leggero because they were once lovers. So if you want me to dip into the archives and find some episodes to recommend to you, I'd be happy to do that, because like the fact that Darren Smith knows who Duncan Trussell is, like, is blowing my mind right now. Because like because it doesn't necessarily overlap with your interests. Like, you do like stand-up comedy, but like he is like, I would consider him kind of niche-y.
Yeah. I can see that. But yeah, I mean, so, and you know, full disclosure, I was high when I was watching it.
That's probably correct. That was probably a solid move.
but still, I guarantee you, like, okay, I don't even think it had anything to do with me. It wasn't me. It was the show. So I'm very curious, like, Lisa, if you do check it out, to get your opinion.
I will. I promise you I will. Now that I know that you have seen it, I will watch it.
And I got a feeling that you'll think, okay, yeah, Darren was right. This show is weird. Okay. Underwater. Did I talk about Underwater last week? That Kristen Stewart movie? That movie's good. I rewatched that with my dad.
Yeah,
I can't remember
it's a good
if
flick.
I talked about it. But other than that, I've been playing video games and just keeping myself entertained. Promare came out digitally like a week ago, and so I've been having it on like consistently while I doodle and stuff like that. So that's pretty much all I've been doing for my weekend dork.
We should do an It Mod watch party where we all just go and hang out and watch something together.
That sounds fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's try to figure that out this week. Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to do it for my weekend dork. Ladies and gentlemen, when we come back from the break, we are going to do our review cast. This week is for the Hugh Jackman film. Is this an HBO, like, original film?
It is.
Oh, okay. An HBO original film, Bad Education. Also starring, what's the lady's name? She was in I, Tonya? As her mom? Allison Janney. Yeah, she's great.
Ray Romano.
And Ray Romano. And who else?
Alex Wolff, Lisa's
Alex
crush.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, you love Alex Wolff. He reminds you of a boy that you had a crush on in high school.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You overheard me talking to my friend Amy.
I sure did.
Because he looked like the guy from my civics class. Was it civics?
I don't remember.
It was U.S. government. I don't know.
wasn't there.
He had a sweet face.
And our boy, Pat Healy.
And Pat Healy, our best friend Pat Healy. Yeah, so if you haven't seen the film, do yourself a favor, go check it out. It's on HBO right now. Then come back because after the break, we're going to talk spoilers about Bad Education. So yeah, we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This week, our review cast is for Hugh Jackman's Bad Education. All right. This film is on HBO, currently streaming. So if you haven't seen it, you have an opportunity to do so. If you have HBO, go check it out because we're going to talk the finer details of the film, maybe. Without further ado, we're going to get into our good, the bad, the ugly of the film. Full disclosure at the top of this review cast. This movie just wasn't my bag, so I'm going to be in and out with the win. I'm so sorry. But I would be and I'm looking forward to the conversation around it because maybe someone can, I don't know, like change my...
We'll convince Darren.
Change my perspective.
It's on us, Brian.
All right, so Brian, the good of Principal Logan.
Principal Logan. Yeah, so Bad Education. I enjoyed the film, man. I mean, of course, with any movie, of course, it has its faults. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the direction of the movie that I enjoyed. Corey Finley directed this film, and this is his second directorial debut behind the movie Thoroughbred.
There's no such thing as a second directorial debut. You only get one debut.
Oh, yeah, I did say that. My bad. The second film. I'm all over the place. His second film after his directorial debut. That's what I meant to say.
That's good. That works.
Which was Thoroughbreds, which was a movie I really didn't like.
I like that one. Wait, that's who directed this?
Yeah.
The one with
They're
Olivia
not totally
Olivia Cook
connected
and,
at all to me.
And the girl from Split.
Anton Yelchin. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I like Thoroughbreds. Okay. Sorry, Brian.
I like Thoroughbreds more than Bad Education.
I like Bad Education more than Thoroughbreds.
Brad hated Thoroughbreds.
I didn't hate Thoroughbreds.
He hated it. He had nothing to say good about it.
That's not true. I liked Anton Yelchin in it.
No, he didn't even say that at the time.
Oh, all right. Well, Brian. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No worries. Yeah, so I didn't really dig that film too much. Of course, I saw it only one time in the theater when it came out, so I actually wouldn't mind, especially after this movie, I wouldn't mind going back to rewatch that film to see if I have a different opinion about it. But I don't know. I liked some of just the pacing of how he kind of unraveled this story. We get into some of the bad, but with that, I like the way that it kind of unraveled, and when you kind of see, I mean, the story is basically telling the story of the New York Roslyn High School, and Hugh Jackman plays the superintendent of that district, and Allison Janney plays the assistant district superintendent. And it's about this, the story of them, basically the biggest embezzlement of them stealing the school's money, which is wild to me that this is a true story. And I don't know, that alone just fascinates me. But also just I don't want to say the negligence, but I guess you could say that of the school to maybe allow something like this to happen. But we see stuff like this all the time, not just in this industry, but about, people stealing and fraud and embezzling money and things of that nature. But to see it done in this way, it's just fascinating to see that.
To me, it makes 1,000% of sense. As a person who has worked in education, granted, I worked at a private school, but like through the course of the school year, everything is happening in a panic. Like there are so many moving parts to running one school, and then the idea of running a district of schools. A lot of other people's jobs, you just have to take on faith. Like, I'm just going to assume that teacher is educating those kids. And I'm just going to assume that the person who is checking the books is being honest. Like, to me, like something like this happening in a school where it's like literally the oversights of tens of people allowed this to happen. But like everybody's just trying to make it through the day when it comes to educating our kids.
Yeah, and that was a fascinating, because we see it every time, like when we go to vote, every 2 years, every 4 years, that there's always something on the ballot for the budget for the new school year, and how they were using that and how they were stealing that money and looking forward to that next budget year when they knew they were going to get these funds, and how they could steal that money, and the way that they were stealing it by having some of these fake business fronts and getting rid of certain item lines and things of that nature. It was crazy to see all that stuff. And another thing that I liked about it too, like once we learn, especially what happens to Allison Janney with the idiot, the stupid thing her son did by racking up all these purchases through the school account using the credit card, which kind of outs her, but kind of knowing that Hugh Jackman's character Frank Tassin was involved in it, and how he was trying to cover his tracks. And as the movie progresses, I like that feeling of how he's kind of like feeling boxed in, and he's like slowly starting to try to keep everything together, but everything is kind of closing in on him, and eventually that all leads are going to kind of point to him. So I like how they're kind of able to kind of give you that feeling with that as well. Also enjoyed, there was Allison Janney. I can't not talk about her. She's amazing. Of course, she won the Oscar for her performance in I, Tonya, and I love Allison Janney, and her Long Island accent. She's awesome in the movie. What else was I going to say? Oh, the young girl who was in Blockers, Geraldine Viswanathan. I hope I pronounced that name right.
She's great.
Yeah, who played Rachel. I really, really enjoyed her story, and there's a couple of great and key scenes in that movie. And there was one particular scene when she's digging more into the story, as far as like the whole idea of I guess they have a budget for this skywalk, because they're basically trying to get to number 1 in the district, and they're right now at this particular moment they're at number 4. And so, they're trying to get the budget so they can build this skywalk, so that they can, have this district or have this particular school be number 1. And so she's digging and looking into, how much this would cost, and seeing like some of the other things that are happening in the school when you have leaky roofs and all these other things that need to be done, but you're going to spend $8-9 million to build this skywalk. So she starts to dig. And when she starts to learn about some of these business fronts that they're using to embezzle some of this money, she goes to the addresses of one of them, of one of the businesses, and realizes that it's the husband of Hugh Jackman's character, which is a whole nother storyline with his character when it comes to that. And she almost gets caught, and he sees her. But I like the scene when they're outside of the school on the bench. And he kind of knows that she's digging, because he knows all leads are kind of, pointing towards him, and he's trying to tell her to not run this story. And it's just interesting to me because it just reminds me of a lot of stuff that we see from, these people in, Wall Street, corporate America. A lot of the stuff that we've seen, like with these Ponzi schemes and all these people, Goldman Sachs and everything that happened with the crisis in 2008 with some of these people who tried to intimidate these reporters and intimidate these people from not running these stories. And I love that scene, and then how that goes into the scene with her father, because they always they hinted at the idea that there was something between Rachel and her father, and then they had the scene where she talks to her father about the insider trading and the fact that he knew about it and he didn't say, and that was the one thing that he regretted, was not saying anything. And it played into the whole idea of what Rachel's decision was going to be as far as whether she should out the story or not. And so I liked a lot. I
really like how Rachel's storyline underlines the fact, like, her refrain whenever she asked for the key to go to the archives is, well, it's a matter of public record.
Yeah.
So, like, us going, like, it's not just the oversight of the bookkeeper, but it's also the oversight of literally everybody. Because that there was a paper trail, anybody could ask to look at the books, and everybody's just going under the presumption that everybody's doing their job.
Yeah, and I like the fact that she didn't overlook that, and I guess we'll get into more as far as some of the other aspects of it, but that was one of the most intriguing things. And I just like her as an actress. I thought she was great in Blockers, especially doing the comedy stuff, and for her to kind of do a little bit a more kind of I don't want to say quieter performance, but a dramatic performance. And I really thought that she did a great job. And to me, even though the movie does focus more on Hugh Jackman, Allison Janney, and everything with that, to me, I like the fact that the character of Rachel is kind of like our eyes and ears through this story. And I kind of wish we followed her a little bit more, but we'll talk about that in the bad. But yeah, those are some of the things that I really enjoy. And I enjoy seeing my man Rafael Casal in the movie, who played Hugh Jackman's boyfriend. He was having an affair. Which is just weird because I didn't understand, because they said that I knew that he was lying to them about him being married, but then because he was with his husband for 30 years, but it was just that whole thing was crazy, how he played that whole thing out, but it was cool to see my man Rafael Casal, man. I love seeing him from Blind Spotting up in there, so I enjoyed that, doing some character work.
All right, Wife Dork, the good.
I like the subject matter. Mm-hmm. I think that the story of a public servant just taking such flagrant, just such a flagrant abuse of his power is interesting, and I also liked the juxtaposition of Frank Toussaint's character in that he was passionate about, the way it's presented in the film, he was passionate about education, and he cared about the kids, and he saw himself as a good educator and a person who ushered this district into success. And the fact that in his mind that entitled him to certain abuses. And at the end of the movie, they tried to sell it as this slippery slope idea where it started with 2 Caesar salads, and then all of a sudden he's creating false fronts and stuff like that. To me, I find that very intriguing, and I would love to watch a McMillian style 6-part 6-hour documentary series about this, because Brian talking about like all of the different story elements that created this script, all of them are intriguing.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he kept his private life so utterly private.
Yeah.
And that was the linchpin that made his husband hurt his husband's feeling to the degree that he would testify on the stance against his own spouse, even though he did not legally have to. The idea that this was ultimately outed by a child, by a 10th grader, like
that he encouraged,
that he had mentored.
Not only mentored, but told her to keep looking, to follow the money. You know, there's no such thing as a fluff piece, right?
Right.
You're treating this like a fluff piece, like this doesn't matter. But a real reporter can make a story out of anything. And that advice, that teacherly advice, is what sends her down her path to uncovering all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating. Allison Janney, her character, like how she was her storyline about her, you know, going like, well, I don't know. I felt like I didn't quite get it. I don't want to usher into the bad, but there are a ton of moving parts in this particular story, and all of them were paths that I was excited to go down and explore. I thought that it was interesting. I thought that Hugh Jackman gave a good performance. You know, with like he's always great. I like to see him do things. I like to watch him kiss boys. Like who wouldn't want to watch Hugh Jackman kiss boys every day? So that's wonderful. Yeah, I think that's like I found it interesting. I'm not like Darren where I'm not actively disliking this movie. Like I was whelmed. Like I've said this before. Like I was whelmed by it. Like I was satisfied. Like that was an interesting story, you know. So it was interesting. I liked it. I liked the score a lot. It had the same score as Us, right?
Yeah, it's Michael Abels.
Michael Abels.
Yeah, I did enjoy the score.
I like the fact that he had a very specific classical bent where you listen to it and you go like, oh, this sounds like Mozart. But no, it was him. It was all him. And I think that's very interesting, especially in contrast to his score of Us, where he really is inventive and a chameleon, and he can do a great score.
All right. Brad.
I mean, I was going to start with Michael Abels. I think that's my favorite thing about the film is just the nature in which he does a great score that doesn't sound anything like his previous two scores. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I think this score is much more traditional and speaks to the realm that he came from before Get Out. And so it was neat to see him sort of morph with this story. I agree with Lisa and Brian that the story is incredibly compelling. I agree with Lisa that I think I would rather have watched a documentary because I felt like the dramatic dissection of this story is just kind of like basic, and it goes where you think it's going to go, and it's handled the way you think it would be handled. I mean, to me, what the movie is ultimately about is hypocrisy and how so many people can present themselves and their ideals as one thing. You know, the fact that he can see himself as a good teacher, and maybe he even is a good teacher in scenarios, but that encourages people to go in areas that once his encouragement is weaponized against him, he will then use his powers as a teacher to manipulate to his will, which is what he tries to do at that park bench in the scene that Brian was talking about. And you get to see him use his skills in a very disgusting and villainous way and selfish way. And the movie, I think the movie, does a great job of rooting out this poison that is his character, this selfishness.
I also like at the end, like the way that the cover up was handled, how they showed like how Frank Tassone tried to encourage his staff to cover up what they had, because like, well, like the fact that this was everybody's oversight, I'm glad that was addressed in the film.
And I think when you make a movie out of these events, what you ultimately do is empathize with the villain, because there is a version of this story in which he is truly seen as a monster, and in a documentary might even turn you against him quicker and faster than the film does. Hugh Jackman, we all like Hugh Jackman. He's Wolverine, for God's sake. So you want to sympathize and empathize with him, and that's the benefit of making it into a drama. All of that being said, though, as a drama, I think I'm more on Brian's side or Darren's side. That it's fine, but so.
Yeah.
And while I didn't necessarily love Thoroughbreds, Thoroughbreds was just like, oh, WTF, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is just like, yeah, okay, that's how you would adapt this story. You would hire Hugh Jackman to make this person a human.
Yeah.
But okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's fine. It's good. 3 stars.
All right. For my good, like I said, Allison Janney, she's great. I liked her as Pam in the film. Geraldine Viswanathan is Rachel. I'm like you, Brian. Like whatever she's in, I'm always interested. She brings.
I'm tired of these Australians taking over our cinema.
Oh my goodness. First it was the English, and now it's the Australians.
It's the Australians.
I like the cinematography. It was fine. Cinematography was okay.
You could see everything. It was very clear, Chris.
Yeah, for the most part. There was a score.
It's a good score.
I was gonna say I'm gonna go back and rewatch it, but then I was like, I'm not gonna lie to Brad. But if it should ever be on again and I'm in earshot, I will pay more attention to the score. See, here's the thing. I think I just wasn't in the right headspace to receive this film. Nothing personally against this film. So who knows? I may have more good at a later date if I were to ever see this film again. But for now, and you know what, truth be told, I didn't say Hugh Jackman as far as when I mentioned the other actors in my good. Only because I'm not a big Hugh Jackman fan. But within the context of this film, I can recognize and admit that his performance as his character, he did a good job as Frank Tassone. So I can say that as well. But yeah, that's it for my good. Brian,
it's interesting is that Lyle Vincent is the cinematographer, right? And I agree. I wasn't really blown away by the cinematography, but he shot A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Oh.
He shot Daniel Isn't Real. He shot Thoroughbreds, The Bad Batch. He shot a lot of movies that I think are gorgeous looking. And I think it just goes to the fact that this story, it's a very ordinary story.
Yeah, it doesn't call for a lot of that type of film, that type of filmmaking or cinematography.
But it doesn't call for much flash from anyone.
Yeah.
And when I'm highlighting Michael Abels' work, I'm saying how it's a good score, it's a solid score, and it sound the miracle of the score is it doesn't sound anything like his previous scores. When you listen to a Danny Williams score or a John Williams score, they all sound the same.
But I think that he's very fluent in classical style. Which I find really intriguing. I find fascinating.
Because it confused you. You thought
I heard his music, and I was like, I should know this piece. And so I asked Siri to tell me what the song was. And it was by Michael Abels. And my mind was blown.
And you were thinking it was like Mozart or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was very cool.
Okay. Brian, the bad.
My bad. Well, one more thing I wanted to say about the good. I like how they. And I'll get into my bad, but I like how they bookend the beginning and the ending with kind of a similar scene. but how it's juxtaposed with, you know, when he comes on stage in the beginning with the number 4, and then he comes on stage and then number 1, but his response and reaction to being number 1, it just, you know, like watching that, I was thinking to myself, like, you know, it's, yeah, you're number 1, but at what cost, you know? And it's just like what people would do to be number 1, you know, like, you know, it's just sad overall, and that goes to just the whole idea of just how compelling the story is. But I guess going into the bad, I agree with you, Brad. I guess I kind of wanted to see more of the real life story, and I think it would work a lot better as a documentary, especially like when you get to the third act and you get to like the court case, and you get those real life interviews with a lot of the parents who, when they talk about, you know, how they didn't really see this, or they talk about how Frank Tassone was, and they never could have imagined that something like this could have happened. And, you know, I thought a lot of that stuff was fascinating, which made me really kind of long to see more of that. So, and I just thought it was weird that they would actually kind of put that, I mean, to put some of those real life interviews in towards the end of the film, you know, because it kind of just changes, you know, kind of the narrative tone a little bit. But I still thought it was fascinating to put that in, but it just made me really kind of long for wanting to see the real life story of this, because it's extremely fascinating. But also with Rachel, I just thought I wanted to get a little bit more of her. I think once she outs Frank Tassone, after she has the conversation with her father, and they kind of go into and then it cuts to him walking into the school, and, you know, everybody's reading the newspaper and everything like that. We kind of go away from her a little while until we see her in the courtroom. And I don't know, like, a part of me kind of feels like, and again, I'm trying to do better not rewriting the story in my head and just kind of, you know, looking at the movie that's presented. But and maybe it's because I like that actress, and I really got compelled with her story and everything with her interactions with her editor-in-chief, Alex Wolff, and just the relationship that she had with her father. I just thought that, to me, that was some of the more interesting things that I gravitated towards in the story, and just wanted to see more of her.
You feel like she's the star of the film in a lot of ways at the start of the movie, and then she just disappears, and Hugh Jackman's character kind of takes over. But I agree with you. I felt like it was weird that she vanishes and then comes back.
And then I guess maybe in the beginning, and again, this is all maybe just the narrative flow, and I know this is all by design, but the beginning of the movie, just the pacing of it, just felt like I was trying to get a grasp of what this story was about. And I'm not saying that a story needs to kind of lay out all its story plots right in the first 10 minutes of the movie, but it just felt, I don't know, it's just something that just stood out to me, where I guess if you don't read the synopsis, I really didn't know like where the story was going. But ultimately, I did like how everything started to kind of unravel, and it does start to come together. But I don't know, like those first 10 to 20 minutes.
I definitely had that same feeling, and my answer to that was I went online and I Googled what this movie was about. Like 10 to 20 minutes into the movie, and then I was like, oh, okay, I know what I'm watching.
Trailers and marketing have ruined you two.
Well, it's because I'm watching it on my couch. You know, like my phone is right there.
but I mean, but to your point, Brad, you're right. I think marketing and trailers does play a big part. But I do like that experience of kind of going in and just kind of letting a movie present itself and let it like unfold in front of you. And that's one reason why I kind of enjoyed this, because I didn't really know much about the story. Because like I said, like I love the beginning when you're seeing like Allison Janney and Hugh Jackman. They're in the office and they're going through like all the parents' names, and it's almost like he's trying to recite and remember who each parent of each kid is, and it didn't like. So I didn't know if that was the story. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, how is this playing? But I think that's more of like a character piece, just showing you how people loved him, because he knew everybody's name, he knew who the kids were, he knew their parents, but he was studying that as well, you know. But I just thought a lot of that stuff was fascinating as character work. But it was just interesting seeing all that at the beginning and just seeing, okay, where's this going? You know, but then to learn that it's a movie about them stealing the money, which, you know, which is still a fascinating story, but I don't know, it was just something that I caught.
Okay. Wife Dork.
To me, like, the issue with the story was that they never really succeeded in selling the stakes, you know? And like Brad was talking about how, like, one of the benefits of doing this as a movie is that it creates empathy for the villain or for the main character. But
the culprit.
The culprit. But in that, like, I feel like they really didn't address Toussaint's culpability. And they were not shy about selling the culpability of Allison Janney's character, they show her as bumbling and like it was because of her mistakes and her dumb family that they got exposed.
Her villainy is one-dimensional, and she's cursed with a one-dimensional storyline.
And just from the few details we got about Frank Toussaint that we from Hugh Jackman's performance, he was a very complicated person who led a very complicated life, and in doing so, made bad choices that he was 10,000% responsible for, and extended from his selfishness and from his, manipulativeness. And so to me, like, if we got to see a lot of his side that we would empathize with. You know, he wants to appear competent at work. He wants to succeed at his job. He wants to be able to maintain his family life while still getting to do what he wants to do. You know what I mean? He's putting up a lot of fronts, and I felt like we did not get the two sides of Frank Toussaint.
Well, I feel what my big bad of the movie is it does not show the consequence of these people's actions of robbing this money, of stealing the money. They tell you that's what they do, but what is the consequence? And it shies away from the tragedy that their villainy commits.
Yeah. So, like, to me, I think that more could have been done. There could have been more extremity throughout.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the ending of this movie is, you know, they got arrested like they should.
Right.
You know, and I was like, there's more awfulness in this.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I think that we got, like, the closest thing we got to highs and lows was the Rachel storyline. And the fact that, like, Rachel was being discouraged at every turn by authorities, but she triumphed over, like, she was initially shut down, but then she triumphed over them. That's a great story.
Yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, so to me, I think that with Frank's character, I think too much emphasis was put on the fact that he was trying to, I don't know. I felt like we didn't get to see ups and downs for Toussaint, which would have made the story in general more interesting.
All right, Brad, the bad.
I think both Brian and Lisa picked out my two big bads. You know, ultimately, like, this is not a movie that I'm going to, like, hate on in any way. I think the movie is engaging. It's interesting. It asks a lot of questions that I think need to be asked right now. I think it is a fun little confrontational piece, performed well. But I'm also with Darren. Like, it doesn't, like, spark passion. And so the bad would be like, yeah, it's good. It's fine. Whereas Extraction I probably liked less, but at least with Extraction it got my blood boiling a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't even feel right. Well, I don't even have the bad. This is nothing wrong with it. Maybe the bad is me. My bad is me. My bad. Just like I said, I don't know that I really don't believe I was in the best headspace to just receive this movie. I don't know, like, I just couldn't engage with it. I couldn't engage with it in a way that felt meaningful to me while I was doing it, and definitely like afterwards, like after the film. So, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that has anything to do with the film. It's not like the dialogue was shitty, and I was like, oh my god, I can't listen to this horrible script, or this performance is really bad. And it was none of that. It's just, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just didn't. I don't know. This just wasn't my bag at the time when I watched it, and I can't honestly point out one thing, or I can't really point out anything specifically in the film that I feel like is bad. I don't know.
They're all parts of this film. Like we went through our good of the film.
Right.
Everything else about the film was serviceable.
Yeah.
The outlining of the script was not bad. It was serviceable.
Yeah.
And that can, especially if you're like in the mood for a hooky movie that's going to intrigue you, you're like, oh, I'm not, it's hard to get enthusiastic about serviceable.
Yeah. Brian, the ugly.
My ugly, I have a couple. Actually, one, it's routine. One more good I had was the end credits. They played my song from Dido. White
I know.
I love. Oh my god! I was like, oh my god, Dido! I love her.
That's so funny because this film takes place in 2002, which actually is the year I graduated from high school. You guys. But like the fact that they ended on a song from 2002 really it's just like, oh my goodness.
I know.
Throwback.
I know. I'm getting hit with a lot of nostalgia. I was like, oh my god, Dido. Oh, I love her. So yeah, I love that. My ugly. My ugly is like when you kind of get learning at the end of the movie that because of the New York State pension laws that Frank Tassone is still getting a pension after this. Fucking ridiculous. Just don't get that. That's ugly to me. And then that laser surgery. Ugh.
Yeah. I think that, nothing against, like, everybody's the boss of their body if they want to get laser surgery or anything like that. But I feel like if you steal taxpayer money to get a facelift, then you should get it unlifted. You should. Wow. That shit should get returned.
All right, Wife Dork, the ugly.
To me, like, I think after having this conversation, I guess, like, the meh-ness of this movie, I guess, is kind of ugly. I definitely, like, I do think it's unfair how Allison Janney's character was portrayed versus the Frank Tassone character, especially considering she embezzled way more money. So if anybody was the frickin' mastermind or the way more successful criminal, it was her. Yeah. So the fact that she comes across as this, bumbling villainess, and he, came across as like life wasn't fair to me and I made some poor choices. Like, it's, I think that's kind of lame.
Yeah. I started.
I shouldn't say lame. I should say,
That's me. No.
You shouldn't be stealing cars while we're doing a podcast.
No, this shit is crazy. Like, this car alarm goes off at least once a day, and of course it would go off right now. This is ridiculous. I don't know what
we're all finding interesting things about our neighbors.
Hey, this is the quarantine life, man.
That's right.
All right, Brad, the ugly.
I think my ugly is the fact that
that car alarm is still going off.
No, it's not the car alarm. It's that I have to get psyched up for Bad Education on HBO because it's the only new movie this weekend.
Yeah.
Like last weekend, like we're reviewing Extraction and Bad Education, two films we would never review in a million years. Especially on this weekend, a Black Widow weekend. That's my ugly. And
I know,
what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You got to get excited. You got to find ways to cherish the new and cherish the old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. My ugly is just, I guess it would just, my ugly would be like the reality of the situation and that's just one story, that is known.
Yeah.
Just imagine how, unfortunately there are people who are getting away with it that there's no, no one knows about it yet, or, and how many people are being affected by it, especially, when you talk about something, like the education system and how funding is it was always, a number one, issue in that regard. And, the fact that people can just do things illegally and get away with it, no matter if it's a short period of time or whatever. I don't know. I guess that the reality of it is the ugly. The fact that we can't go see Black Widow this weekend.
Yeah.
But that is, man, like when you think about it, like, I mean, sometimes we don't see it or feel it, but just the simple fact that people are abusing taxpayer dollars, like the money that we pay for, federal and state taxes is going to pay for somebody's dry cleaning or, facial surgery. And it's just like, we vote on these budgets. Like, we don't expect that money to be going to somebody paying for it. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just fucked up.
Yeah.
It is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our review cast of Bad Education. Hit us up on social media if you've seen the film. Let us know what you think of the film. Brian, what are you looking forward to this weekend? I feel bad even asking this question now.
Oh man, nah, don't feel bad, man. There's always something to look forward to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, y'all know tonight in like an hour, The Last Dance. The Last Dance, man, episodes 5 and 6. It might be a little bittersweet because tonight I think is going to be the episode where they have Kobe. And of course, we lost Kobe tragically in January to a helicopter accident. Him and also his daughter Gigi, who died with him. Her birthday was also just a few days ago. So and I believe he taped his interview like maybe a week or so before the helicopter crash.
Jesus.
So it's it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a hard one tonight. So I'm gonna get my eye ducts.
Your tear ducts?
Tear ducts, eye ducts. Well, tears come from the eyes, damn it. I'm gonna get those ready, get my Kleenex and stuff. But I'm looking forward to that, and of course, episode 4 of Insecure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. That's what I'm looking forward to.
All right. You can follow that guy and wish him happy birthday at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork, what are you looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward to Brian getting gifts from us in the mail. We're making his birthday even longer by buying his gifts late. I'm looking forward to watching Insecure. I'm looking forward to watching Man of Steel.
Yay.
And I am looking forward to checking out I don't even remember the title. Duncan Trussell as new thing, the Midnight Gospel.
Oh, yes.
Checking that out so I can talk about it with Darren next week.
All right. You can follow her at Sidewalk Siren and at Bake Dork on Twitter and Instagram. She's also at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd. What are you looking forward to this week, B?
I'm still plugging away on Usagi Yojimbo comics,
Yes.
and so I'm reading them in chronological order, and I'm almost done with the first big trade paperback that Dark Horse put out. Loving it, so I'm gonna keep reading those. Justice League Dark Apocalypse War comes out this week.
Excuse me, Gesundheit. Sorry.
Bless you.
Yes, bless us all.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And I think we should do a review cast of Justice League Dark Apocalypse War.
Yeah?
That's my vote. And then, of course, May 12th is Capone, the Josh Trank and Tom Hardy Capone film comes out on VOD on the 12th.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can follow.
And then through the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester, we are hosting a discussion, which will probably be just like a live video of myself, and you can comment in Q&A about a White Day, the Icelandic murder mystery.
Ooh. I like a murder
That's
mystery.
on Thursday at 7:30 on our Facebook Still Awesome page.
All right. You can follow that guy at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. I'm you know what? I'm looking forward to Man of Steel and BVS as well. I'm gonna skip Justice League only because I don't need to see that one. But I will watch, and I'm looking forward to watching Man of Steel and BVS, the extended edition, this week.
Good.
Yes.
So we can have a 40-minute Insecure style discussion about Man of Steel. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
We're really going to alienate some people this week, and that makes me feel good.
Wow. All right. You can follow me at the Disco Dork on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Be kind to one another. And until next time.